All right, so this is a suggestion via a channel member. Guys, let's jump into it.
State leaders are now pleading with the health department to undo its plans to cut off child care funding. Garrett Tenney has the latest live from Chicago. Garrett?
Yeah, Mike, and police in Minneapolis are also investigating a break-in at a daycare center. Now, this particular daycare center was not featured in Nick Shirley's viral video, but it is one of the dozens flagged to state investigators earlier this year for receiving more than $1 million in federal funding, despite having multiple and repeated violations on record.
$1 million looking like that?
Ncom Daycare say surveillance cameras captured two men breaking into their business, claiming they cut through an outside cinder block wall, crawled through an interior wall, and busted their way in before getting into an office and stealing business records, including personal information of who attends the daycare. Here's the center's manager.
One video made by a specific individual made this all happen. Yesterday was our daycare. Tomorrow might be someone else's. We don't know. So this has to stop.
I mean, yes and no. Like, I mean, understand this here. I've pointed out kind of a couple of times here, when it comes down to like the ability for the masses to critically think, and depending on the information that they're basically getting, if they have no ability to critically think, then I can see this happening on a large scale. This is why it's kind of important sometimes to make sure you are kind of cautious with what you say and things like this here. But either way, if there is a gigantic problem, there should have been another way to kind of go about it. Rather than just breaking into things, because again, we do live within a system of laws and like policies and regulations, etc. Right? But this is a critically thinking problem.
While the Minneapolis police are investigating this reported break-in, some are suggesting it could be a cover-up of wrongdoing, including the HHS official who paused federal funding to Minnesota Daycare this week. Alex Adams posted crazy coincidence that attendance records are missing one day after the HHS secretary
hold the phone here, buddy.
State of Minnesota. Minnesota Democrats, meanwhile, are continuing to defend.
They came in and took. Oh, guys, that changes a lot here. How plausible is that? Very highly, right? Because, I mean, don't get me wrong here. The guy that was basically just speaking here sounds hyper bitter.
And their handling of the alleged fraud in the state.
Hold the phone here, buddy.
Trump administration for freezing more than $190 million in federal funding as it investigates what prosecutors say could be more than $9 billion of fraud in the state.
They came in and took specifically attendance records?
We're working every day to improve our systems, hold those criminals accountable, and move our state forward. That's why
I recant my statement. I recant it.
That Donald Trump and Republicans want to use this as a political vehicle to cut funding entirely to our state.
Republicans argue Minnesota Democrats are now trying to whitewash their mishandling of the growing scandal.
If you go back to the Biden administration, particularly along that border, and you heard Biden say, well, I'm doing everything I can do, but yet President Trump came into office and fixed it almost right away.
Very quickly.
It almost feels like that again. You have
he was
Governor
doing
Wall
nothing.
saying, well, I'm doing everything I can do at the moment. And yet President Trump and his team are flooding the zone with resources and probably are going to get to the bottom of it before the governor and the AG there in Minnesota do.
Yeah, Congress is now hoping to have a chance to question both Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and Governor Tim Walz at a hearing on Capitol Hill next month. Mike?
We will follow this story. Garrett Tenney, thanks very much. Molly?
All right, let's bring in Florida Congressman Mike Karadopoulos. He sits on the House Financial Services Committee. And sir, welcome. Thank you so much for being here on this new year, 2026. We greatly appreciate it. Garrett Tenney just covered, Happy New Year to you. Garrett Tenney just covered an incredible amount of ground in that report. There was a break-in at one of the daycares where records have been requested by the federal government, federal investigators. The feds are moving in on this community, trying to get to the bottom of the fraud investigation that's underway. And local officials are blaming the Trump administration for something that really they've been working on for many, many years now as Governor Walz is running for a third term. I just want to get your thoughts on how things stand right now and what you have to say about it.
Well, as a son of an FBI agent, this is nothing short of organized crime. This is what the mafia does. They steal, they lie, they cheat. And what's happened here is nothing short of that. And the federal government has to use the full powers that we used to destroy the mafia back in the 1960s. Nothing short of it. This undercuts the fabric of America. People work hard to pay their taxes, and they see the dollars thrown away in an organized crime method.
Yeah, guys, but you would need actually like hard proof to set up like a solid RICO, right? And you'll also most likely need to know exactly who the leader is, or the ones who are mainly benefiting exclusively from it. And if you've already prosecuted 60 out of the 85 people, right? Which one of them is a leader? Because I mean, they're already in jail. So I mean, of course, you can levy like brand new charges on them potentially, but uh, how are you going to do that? You need to find a leader, bro. And they're probably not in the United States of America. Truth be told here.
And the way you get these people is with the same vengeance that the Biden administration took on with the January 6th incident at the Capitol. That's how you take them on. You start with the lowest level investigators and you say, you knew what was going on. Who told you to turn a blind eye? Nothing short of that will be acceptable to me or members of Congress, because we know when Waltz comes to testify, he's going to lie to our face just like he did on the Sanctuary City issue.
Yeah, and you're raising a very important point that the House Oversight Committee is announcing 2 hearings. They've invited Governor Walz to come and testify in Washington. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. That particular day is slated for early February. James Comer, who heads the Oversight Committee, had this to say about the effort that's underway. Congress has a duty to conduct rigorous oversight of this heist and enact stronger safeguards to prevent fraud in taxpayer-funded programs, as well as strong sanctions to hold offenders accountable. I think you said something a moment ago that probably touched on a lot of the concern among Americans, is that Americans all across the country are struggling to pay for pre-K, for daycare. I mean, that's generally a very high cost, and you don't want to see, our money thrown away when it could be going to those very programs that people need. Your thoughts?
Well, it's infuriating. There's nothing short of it. I mean, again, we work so hard for our money, and to see these people on an organized crime spree to take the money and then send it out of the country on top of that. I mean, this is what's going on in Minnesota, and the governor doesn't care. And his excuse, it's Trump's fault. Get real. Take your job seriously and get to the bottom of this, because we are. And I'm just tired of this. This is why a lot of us left the private sector to get back into politics, because there's a bunch of fraudsters and crooks, and clearly they've been exposed. And sadly, it wasn't the mainstream media that exposed this. It was a person who took it upon themselves, to their credit, and exposed this fraud so the rest of us see it firsthand. And now we know why that Waltz hated things like the Doge, because we're exposing fraud just like they did with USAID.
Yeah, I want to shift to healthcare quickly, because it's going to be a major topic during the initial months of 2020.
Guys, USAID specifically is a tricky thing, right? Because obviously we would all think that it has everything to do with the concept of giving money to other places, guys, right? Pay attention to that organization, guys. Okay, that's it.
As we are there, the Democrats,
the name specifically may not be representative of what it is.
The expiration date for the subsidies, now they have expired. But I suppose the question, though, is what can Republicans do now in these coming months?
Well, first, let's be clear. A couple weeks ago, we passed a bill in the House of Representatives that would have brought down Obamacare costs by 11%.
It's gone up.
By my numbers, that's the CBO.
It's gone up drastically today.
Don't like, called the Congressional Budget Office. Yet the Democrats back in July actually used the Byrd rule in the Senate to kill that 11% savings. And then more recently, we're hoping that they'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, they did it because it came with other things that they're not going to accept. They were never going to accept the other things that it came with. So I think it's moderately disingenuous to just kind of point out the fact that the Democrats denied this one thing that Americans want and need, but there are other things kind of in the bill that specifically they had no interest in partaking in. And Republicans do this also all the time, guys.
This time, now that we have a new bill in the Senate, they need to pass our bill so we not only reduce costs by 11%, but we also have major fraud provisions, because recently, even the Washington Post, again, a liberal group, said there is rampant fraud in Obamacare. That's why we just can't rubber stamp a broken system that has failed the American people since 2010. And the truth is, they lied to us there, too. They said they would reduce costs. They said they would reduce the power of insurance companies. The exact opposite happened. We have a better plan. We're hoping the Senate will take up our bill that we passed a couple weeks ago in Washington, D.C.
Okay, guys, hold on. Firstly, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's, bro. But the thing is, like, is Obamacare like a broken bill? It is, right? I mean, but they're all kind of a broken bill. But that's not what's actually broken. Our healthcare system is broken, bro. Like, I mean, when you realize that you have to go to the hospital sometimes if you lose your finger, 2 of them, all right? And you have to decide which one to basically put back on because of the price of it. I mean, I think that's probably the start of the problem. But either way, sure, Obamacare is the problem, not that other stuff, right? Not the 11, $20,000 emergency room visits. No, not that. Okay, either way, guys, we have a big problem kind of all throughout here. But listen, hold on. Do I think that specifically, like after hearing the entire story of this entire event that happened at this daycare center with the break-in and for some reason they were trying to get the information, bro, I don't believe that now. All right. Could it be that there was some absolute crazy that saw Nick Shirley's story specifically, has been watching the news consistently? They live on the news, right? If that makes any sense, they embody it. They say, hold on, this thing is happening right now. I need to go ahead and do something and take action. It's plausible because America's wild, right? Some of us are crazy, bro. Right? You guys send me old police videos. Some of us are crazy. I mean, absolutely nuts. All right. So it's plausible that could have happened, but also at the same time, listening to the rest of the story here, what did they take? Why would you break into a building and steal records for, like, who comes here or who pays here and you get what I'm saying here, guys? No, that sounds weird, right? Like if you're already being looked at for the concept of fraud, all right, and there's a lot of money being put into this, I'm almost positive, it's plausible for someone to say, hold on, I don't want us to get looked at. So we're going to go ahead and stage a break-in and we're going to take the literal documents. Nothing else, just the literal documents you guys may or may not have specifically. We're going to call the police the next day and say, they came in and stole our records. Who steals? Why would we want your records, bro? Nothing else was taken, just the records that proved that you guys are doing the right thing. Bro, shut your mouth. Okay, I don't believe that. That's a lie. All right, that is a lie. Okay? But initially, but two things can definitely be true though. Like in fact, okay, period. This is why like these type of scenarios, when they get really big and super viral, they scare me a little bit because I know there are going to be people out there who will get absolutely. They will turn into extremists, let's say, immediately over watching some random news video they saw on the internet and say, this is true at 100% rate, so we need to do something about it. No critical thinking, just pure running off pure emotions here. And that's why these type of things scare me, right? Specifically when they go viral, or when broad generalizations are basically kind of levied over entire groups and things, right? But it's plausible. Truthfully, it's super plausible that this is all a lie, but it's also super plausible that some crazy, non-critically thinking crazy, all right, went out there and said, this is happening, I'm going to do something about it. All right? This is America. It's plausible. Guys, do you want to watch movies with me? I never actually thought to like promote it over here, guys. But if you guys do want to watch it, guys, we have hundreds of movies. And I mean hundreds of movies that we've reacted to. You guys can come watch them with me if you want to, along with many TV shows. Currently, we're working on the show Dexter, along with Vikings. And we have a lot of series that are already completed. But if you guys do want to watch it with me, the link is in the description. Everything's available at the second tier. But of course, if that's not your thing, guys, don't worry, right? Listen, like and subscribe.